Go ahead and zoom this in so you can see it really well. Pardon me. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, let's rotate around to the other side first. So here's the two options. Option A, come through to here, to these back branches, and let it grow up. It's a short, straight, abrupt taper from A to B. And if you look at it towards the front, I think it makes the apex look a little flat. To me, that's a little bit flat. That's kind of static. Option C, I think, is more dynamic and eventually will be a better taper design ultimately for the tree. And that's coming down all the way to these lower branches down here. I think that's going to be a more realistic taper on the tree. And to me, a better apex overall will be gained from that. But let's not be hasty about it. Let's look at it both ways. Let's make a decision. Yeah, I just think personally that this line here is too flat. That top line is just, it's too flat for me. It almost makes me look like I mean, I know that these are not as high as the apex is, but I think that's too flat. I think this is a more interesting taper than this. That's just my personal feeling. And when you look at it from the front of the tree, you can really tell the taper is there when you go down here to where I'm at versus up here. It still looks kind of flat. You can see from the front of the tree the drawing, the white paint mark that I've made. That's about the front of the tree that you're looking at it now. Somewhere right in there is going to be about the front of this tree. So you can kind of see and get an idea that where we're going with it, with this line down through here and this line down through here, is going to be a little more dynamic. In my opinion. I mean, you know what they say about opinions. Opinions are like, you know what, everybody's got one. In my feeling, this is where we're going with it for design. It's this line right through here. Darken it up. So with that said, we're going to remove everything that's not necessary and get to carving. The tool that I'm going to be using to carve this is the same tool I've used on all of them. It's that Dremel type tool, not the Dremel, it's actually similar to what the Makita is. It's a long shank die grinder. And it'll make pretty quick work of what we need to do here. The first thing I'll be doing, of course, is I'm going to come through here with the Sawzall and cut the majority of this off that we're not going to keep. And then that way it reduces the amount of carving time I have. So I'm going to cut from here up off with the Sawzall first. And then I'll do the fine, delicate carving down through the line with the die grinder. I've got 3 branches over here. One of these 3 we're going to keep. It's probably going to be this one here that's a little bit longer. We're going to keep versus these 2 here. I like that position that it's in. It's a little bit lower. Well, it's not the lowest one on the tree. The lowest one on the tree is this one down here. So, I don't know. We'll make a decision on what we want to do there. Maybe that lower one is in a little bit better position ultimately because it's a little bit lower down. I mean, we're talking about quarters and halves of an inch between these 2. We zoom out a little bit so you can see them better. We're talking about these 3 are within 3/4 of an inch of each other. Maybe it would be best to use this lowest one. I mean, yeah, we're talking about 1/4 of an inch, but there's a lot of trunk here to cover. And I could bring this one down and it could probably be realistic. But the thing I'm looking at also is this one here, which just got the growing tip broken off of it. Nonetheless, it'll be fine. This is the one that we're keeping on this side. this little one here. This here is probably going to get eliminated as well. We're going to look for a back butt or something down through here to worry about something in that area. And we got a little bit of carving to do up here on this side as well. There's kind of a knob there that I'm not too fond of on this tree. Although I do have a branch that I eliminated here, which means I could get a dormant bud coming from here, which would help, or we could probably get a dormant bud popping back through here somewhere. We've got some options. We'll worry about that later. Like I said, we can always thread graft. So let's get to carving. I'm not going to do the carving. I'm not going to show you all the carving and everything because we've done that already on another video. I'm just going to go ahead and get to it. Like I said, I do have some time constraints here, so I need to try to get this done as quick as I can. Okay, I just wanted to revisit the tree here real fast after we've done the sawzalling to give an idea of where we are now and what we're shooting for. This little twin trunk looking thing at the rear was actually just the root curving back up in the back, so it's a good thing we chopped that off because it was not going to be something that was going to be good for the final design. However, we do have roots on it, and it'll make a nice little tree. I mean, shoot, there's a nice apex right here for it, and decent basial flare. This is all dead roots right here. We can cut these back, but there's live root here, live root here, live root here, live root here, a couple in the back as well. So if we plant this, it'll make a nice little mame tree. So we'll stick it in some soil and just let it do its thing. That's a kind of a benefit of material like this. You can get 2 for 1. But I'll stick this to the side for now and check out what we've done cut-wise. Okay, here's the 2 major cuts that we did. If you remember, this large knob was sitting right here on the back of the tree, and obviously that's not what we're after for a decent base, so I've went ahead and cut that much of it off, and then we'll continue to do some carving around this area here to make it more of a transitional thing. And of course the top, we had all this, and I kind of ended up going in between those two for this initial cut so I can whittle down to where I think it's going to be perfect. It gives me some more options to work with. So we went from this to this, and I think it's a good start. We need to come down a little bit further, but it's a good start. Now, this tree's not going to be without its flaws. It's not going to be a perfect tree in any stretch of any imagination at any point in time, but it's going to be a good tree. I do have some, I haven't exposed them yet, but we will here shortly. There are some really nice roots in the back of the tree. It's got a really good nabari. Right here we chopped off the bottom of this. It's an angled cut, so it'll callus over, and there's some roots underneath here, so it'll continue creating that fine tracery of roots. But here's where we are at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and grab the grinder now, and we're going to go ahead and get started grinding, and we'll get back to you after we get done with that. Alright, welcome back. Here you see the tree as it stands for this season. Again, this is, I'm going to consider it the first styling of this tree. It was removed from the ground, all the main branches chopped, chainsaw taken to the roots so it could have gotten into at least a growing container last year, and that's it. So now that I've gotten it the second year, I went ahead and chose an apex, reduced the rest of the tree to match the apex, do some carving work that was necessary on those main other branches that were sacrificial branches that were used to get this massive trunk that you see here in front of you, and selected a few branches here and there. Now what I've done is went ahead, and this is our main apex. This is going to continue to grow unchecked for the next 3 to 4 years so we can get a decent girth on it so we have a realistic taper. I may need to hack it back 1 or 2 times in that time frame as well so that extension growth continues to go. I did, as you can see, get it in a smaller 1 foot by 2 foot growing container, and that's going to help me be able to transport this thing. It had probably 150 pounds of old hard, well not hard, but it was dense clay soil underneath it. I did have to take the sawzall to the bottom as well There were a lot of nubs underneath there, and I also had to take back a little bit of the rest of it. This nabari is actually touching both sides here as well as both sides here, so it's a ginormous nabari on this thing. The nabari is 2 foot by 1 foot because I could just barely get it into this growing container in order to continue its training. I've gone ahead and put cut paste over all the large wound sites. I'm a really big advocate of utilizing cut paste for wound healing. This thing's going to explode with growth this spring. If not, it may sulk a little bit this year because I did not leave a whole lot of root on this, but trident maples are known for a lot of rapid growth year per year. I'll probably get quite a bit of extension growth on the apex as well as these branches that I've left. I am anticipating some back budding as well. I went ahead and kept the longer branch of the 3 on this side. This is the lowest branch on the tree at the moment, so it needs to be the largest branch on the tree. This over here, if you remember, I did have a branch coming out that I was going to keep. However, I have got 3 dormant little teeny weeny buds that are just starting to pop here, so I'm going to utilize one of those for this side. That way, this one's got a year's worth of head start versus this side over here. I did go ahead and keep a back branch as well to go ahead and help with the healing of the wound site. We're going to continue working on the wound sites on this tree. As the energy flows up into this apex, because of course this tree is apically dominant, there's going to be a lot of energy pushed through the tree, which we're going to get a lot of rapid wound healing. I don't anticipate having these wounds completely healed for another 5 years or so, is going to be my best guess. That's the fastest I see this tree getting these wounds healed. Maybe more. I don't know that it's going to be. My other trident maple was about that long. So let's go ahead and continue with our 360 here. There were, as you can see, I've packed the wound paste on here really well. What will happen is when this stuff dries, it will shrink down a little bit and it'll form a hard crust. That's going to do one of 2 things. The amount that I put on here, it's going to stay pliable, which is going to keep those hormones still viable. Once the stuff dries out and hardens off, I don't know that those hormones are there anymore. But number 2, it's going to protect this wood that's in these areas. And you can see I did add some down here to this area that did not have any before. I don't want those areas of wood to rot out and form a hollow situation on this tree. So I wanted to make sure I got a good amount of cut sealant all over those areas to protect that wood, to prevent it from rotting. So I was not able to get this tree in the pot like I had wanted to for the front of it. It needs to be rotated this way some. But this was the best I could do in the time frame that I had to work with. I don't see this tree being in this small of a pot when it's in its final pot, so I do have the ability to, due to the larger final container, or when we take it out of this and put it into our mica pots, I'm going to get a little bit larger pot, and I might get an oval for it versus a rectangle anyway, and that'll give me the ability to rotate it and clock it to where I want it to be as far as the front's concerned. Where I see the front of this tree is somewhere right in there as you're looking at the tree currently. So you can tell, right here is the corner of the container that it's currently in. And I tried to get it as close as I could. It's just the roots are so massive, and the nabari on this thing is so wide and so spread out underneath there that this is what I ended up with. So this is the tree for the year, and we will again revisit this one in spring on the Journey to My Benches series. My trees are starting to leaf out and starting to pop growth out and everything now. I have a few more that I need to do some videos on, so we're going to try to get as many of those done now as we can for this season. Once, of course, they leaf out, there's not a whole lot we can do as far as main trunks and branch styling and placement. The majority of what we're going to be doing from here on out is working on our ramification. So, once again, we'll do another 360 for you, and we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for watching.